In 2002, a group of friends filmed themselves kidnapping 19-year-old Danielle Taylor, placing her in a grave they dug out and pretending to slit her throat. They would later claim that it was a prank and that Danielle was in on it, but with the case already dividing opinion when it occurred, the exact circumstances are even less clear since most of the footage has fallen into obscurity. Let's investigate. If you enjoy internet mysteries and generally disturbing content, feel free to subscribe and turn on notifications for more content like this. I also have a Patreon and a PayPal, so if you're interested in supporting the channel and watching the uncut version of this video and many others, feel free to check those out through the links in the description. You can also leave me a tip by clicking the thanks under this video. Thanks to anyone who considers this. I am thrilled to announce that finally, this video is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. In case you've been living under a rock for the last couple of years and haven't heard of it, it's a turn-based role-playing game where you can build your team from over 600 champions, each with unique skills, and choose from hundreds of artifacts to equip to take on raid bosses, dungeon runs, campaign battles, and PvP arena matches. It can be played on PC or mobile, so whatever your preference and wherever you are, you never have to survive another day without the exhilaration of Raid Shadow Legends. My favourite part of the lore is the High Elves, who help the humans form into civilizations after surviving the fall of the Lizardmen Empire and defeating the Orcs. It all kinda went to shit though when Sirith, the Lord of Darkness, managed to turn some of the elves evil and they attacked the kingdom, sparking a civil war. Luckily, their homeland Aravia survived and came back stronger than ever. So why start playing now? Well, there's a lot of fun stuff going on this month. Forge Pass Season 3 with some awesome rewards on offer, such as a limited edition artifact set. Also, Raid's bringing out some awesome looking champion skins for the incredible Madame Ceres. But the excitement doesn't end there. The moment we've all been waiting for is finally upon us, as everyone's favourite champion, Death Knight, is finally becoming a legendary champion. So now is the perfect time to get started. New players can click the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen now to get a free starter pack worth almost $30, including a free champion Aina and this awesome in-game loot. You'll find your rewards in your inbox for the next 30 days only, so what are you waiting for? Click my link and start playing today. Flint, a city in Michigan, USA, has been described as relatively uneventful, with not much to do, and as a result, some have said it's hardly surprising that a group of young people would go to such great lengths to entertain themselves. Whether out of boredom or sheer sadism, depending on who you believe, a group of friends, namely Travis Paella, James Carwile, Derek Faxlinger, Jonathan Cockerill, and Christina Lum, decided on the 4th of April 2002 that they were going to make a movie. When Danielle Taylor, at the time a waitress at Taco Bell and an acquaintance of the group, arrived at the house they were all in, things quickly took a dark turn. The tape, filmed by Travis, shows James and Jonathan wrestling her to the ground and tying up her feet, then her hands, though not very well, as she soon frees them, while making no effort to escape. The group all taunt her and say things like, "Hey, it hurts right, well think about it, in half an hour from now you'll never feel another thing. And, enjoy that pain, that's the last thing you'll ever feel." Danielle is blindfolded and taken to a car where a knife is held near her face, then she's driven to a shallow grave that the group dug earlier in the snow. They put her in while telling her she's going to die and that if she says one more word it will be her last, before shoveling snow and soil onto her legs. One member of the group steps over the grave and pretends to slit her throat, and soon after the prank ends with Travis crediting each member of the group, including the victim, whose name he says he can't remember, before another member of the group informs him. Shortly after, the footage shows Danielle quite calmly complaining that she's cold and her arms are sore. The footage I just described can be seen in an MSN BCW documentary titled The Killing Game. I have no idea if the full doc itself is still officially available, but archives of minute-long clips that seem to stitch together to show the full thing can be found online. While we certainly get the gist of the situation from said footage, there are gaps that could potentially be important in determining the context of what happened. The film has been posted about on Reddit before, most recently only 9 days ago at the time of writing this script, and some users claim to have seen the film in its entirety years ago. The recent Reddit post read, "In 2003, 5 friends made a found footage-style video of themselves kidnapping a girl and verbally assaulting her. They take her into the ice-cold forest and put her in a shallow grave before letting her free. I watched this movie around 2006 or 2007. In my child mind, the video came off as very authentic, however it's likely that this movie was made as a stunt to gain attention. Apparently the police actually got involved, and the kids who made the movie just said it was a horror film and that the girl was in on it. This would be fine if it weren't for the fact that the girl claims she was not in on it at all. There is plenty of evidence that this film exists. An IMDb page, several reviews, and even a trailer can easily be found online. However, the full film has not been seen in years. I do not remember what site I watched it on, and it's probably been removed. If anyone knows where this film can be watched, please let me know. Also, if anyone has any info on what actually happens to the filmmakers and the victim, I'd love to know. The title of that post includes the title of the film, The Real Blair Witch. However, it appears that that is actually a documentary that was made on it in 2003. OP stated in the comments that they remembered watching what appeared to be totally unedited, raw footage, and hence they don't believe it was a documentary. Presumably, the doc showed at least as much footage as the Killing Game documentary, perhaps even more, so it's unclear whether OP saw the whole film itself, or if they watched the doc, and with them being a child at the time they watched it many years ago, only recall the footage itself. Another user claimed to have seen it in 2014 on a Free Movies website. Again, it's unclear whether they saw the film itself or the doc, and so at this point, we have no idea if the whole film has ever actually circulated online or been accessible in any way to the public. Regardless, it seems that the Real Blair Witch doc is no longer available to watch anywhere, so we only have a few references online, plus the vague memories of random Reddit users to inform us of what it contained. In an earlier post last year, there was some speculation over whether it actually existed, as there was an IMDb page with a synopsis and no other information. However, enough information has been found online since to confirm it was a real documentary, only no one has been able to find a copy. It has been shown in the UK, apparently on Channel 4, and also in New Zealand. There's an article on the New Zealand Herald website from the 21st of July 2007 showing that it was broadcast on that day at 9:30 p.m. It can be inferred from a Freddy's House forum thread from April 2003 that the Real Blair Witch featured more footage from the film than what is shown in the Killing Game. OP says that towards the end, they're all bowing to the camera for probably around 5 to 10 minutes. This scene is shown in the Killing Game, although not for that length of time, so it can be surmised that parts of the film that were cut may have been included in the Real Blair Witch, if not the film in its entirety. Unlike some lost media, it's not much of a mystery why this doc can't be found now. It's one in a long line of old, presumably relatively low-budget TV programmes that have fallen into obscurity because there probably isn't enough interest in them to show reruns. Regardless, to call the Real Blair Witch lost media isn't entirely accurate, even though it can't be found online, because according to worldcat.com, a physical copy of it can be found in Brunel University in London. A Redditor claimed to have contacted the library and received the following in response. We do have a copy of the DVD, The Real Blair Witch. However, I am afraid copyright law being what it is in the UK, we cannot copy it or send it to you for you to copy. The license under which we are allowed to purchase and lend DVDs to our staff and students stipulates that they can only be used by our staff and students and may not be distributed or loaned to anyone other than a currently enrolled student or currently employed member of staff. Sorry, but I do not think we can help you acquire a copy this way. The Redditor also said they were sent a photo of the DVD case and the disc. Seeing as Brunel University is the only place where a copy is known to exist, that leads us to a bit of a dead end. But if anyone watching this happens to be or know a student or employee there and can find out any further information, I'd love to hear it. At this point, you're probably wondering what happened after the tape. Well, a few days later, Danielle went to the police and reported the group, who were soon arrested and charged with kidnapping and assault. I've seen conflicting reports on the exact circumstances. In the Killing Game doc, it's implied that she spoke to police of her own accord, whereas ABC News reported that a doctor noticed bruises on her wrist during a routine physical and encouraged her to do so. They claimed she had been in on it all along, that they had gained her consent a few days before, only didn't tell her exactly when it would happen. They claimed to have written a script that she'd approved, which later went missing so wasn't admitted as evidence, whereas Danielle claimed to have no prior knowledge whatsoever. What's said in the tape makes me doubt that there was a script, and if there was, it was written badly. Anyway, the case divided the city, with some believing Danielle really was an innocent victim, and others insisting she must have known and agreed to the kidnapping. The defendants ended up taking a plea deal and pled guilty to attempted kidnapping and felony assault. They were sentenced to time already served in jail, which had been around 60 days, and probation. But debatably, the case isn't exactly solved, and it's still not really clear whether or not Danielle was in on the prank. There are a few possible scenarios here, one being that Danielle had no idea what the group planned to do to her, another is that she was vaguely informed of the plan but not told when it was going to happen or exactly what would happen, as James implied in the Killing Game, or it went much further than she expected, and finally that she was fully aware of the plan and was acting the whole time. The defense argued that Danielle was clearly acting in the video. While at times she appeared to be genuinely scared, there were points where she was almost too casual that could be seen as bad acting. From the footage in the Killing Game alone, it's honestly hard to tell. She doesn't seem as shaken up afterwards, or during the ordeal for that matter, as you might expect. But how is someone supposed to act when they believe they're being kidnapped? A person's response to such an unexpected and traumatic situation is not always limited to fight or flight. In fact, a common response is freeze. If someone is so overwhelmed by a stressor, they might find themselves unable to fight or resist whatever is happening, or to attempt to run. When the rope tying Danielle's hands together loosens and she informs the group, that could be because, in her mind, any attempt to escape would be futile, so her best bet is to comply. When she sits in the grave with her head down for a while after they pretend to slit her throat, maybe she was so in shock that she didn't even realise that her throat hadn't been slit. When she's shown towards the end of the film saying, "I survived, I'm freezing and my arms hurt," in a relatively calm manner, that could be because she's scared they'll hurt her for real if she makes a scene, and probably partly because she's so relieved to be alive that the anger hasn't yet set in. Point is, her behaviour can be interpreted either way, so I don't think analysing it provides much insight here. Another point mentioned by the defence is that the knife that was held near Danielle's face had tape over the blade, so they clearly didn't intend on harming her. I don't see how that makes any difference to the case though, as the mystery doesn't lie in whether or not they actually intended to hurt her. We know they didn't, it was just a movie, but whether or not she agreed to the plan. Regardless, the tape covering the knife is thin and the tip is exposed, so it probably wouldn't have made much difference. Had the car crashed or even hit a bump, she could have been stabbed in the throat, so it was a very irresponsible thing to do. You might have assumed that Danielle went to the police and they seized the tape, however it has been highlighted that a couple of days after the incident, she actually asked a member of the group to pick her up and take her back to the house where it all began. While there, unbeknown to the group, she took the tape and switched it with another so they wouldn't notice. When asked why in court, because surely she'd be too scared to be around them again if they really did kidnap her, she said she worried that they would destroy it before police found it if they heard she had reported them. Why would Danielle lie though if she had agreed to take part in the film? Defense lawyers pushed the theory that she was actually in love with Travis, and when she found out he wasn't interested, she lied about her involvement in the tape to punish him, and perhaps Christina too, who Travis was at least living with at the time and apparently may have been in a relationship with. Danielle doesn't outright admit to having a crush on Travis, but in the tape, when asked why she started hanging out with the group, she says Travis, and when asked why, she states she thought he was a nice guy. In court, she was asked if she contacted the group after the incident, and she said she asked Christina if Travis was available, which all but confirms that she was interested in him. And admittedly, the timing of that query is quite suspicious. This was after she had allegedly been kidnapped by him. She also spoke to him on the phone, but claims that that was to ask him why he did what he did, and he said, "You know how much power we had over you when we did that. It was basically a power trip and a rush." It turns out that this is not the first time the group pretended to kidnap someone. In fact, it happened just a week earlier. In the killing game, Derek, who had the least involvement in the kidnapping of Danielle as he passed out on the sofa and didn't leave the house with the group, says that the week before, he stayed over at the house and they, quote, went through another skit with a different girl. Went through this struggle scene with her. I like movies, but I don't know if I'm into that, so I kinda took off. That girl was called Sarah, a friend of the group, and she actually appears in the doc throughout. Weirdly, James claims that she was so terrified that they didn't keep it up for longer than 3 minutes, and that they were scared that she would have a heart attack or start convulsing. He also said she wasn't warned about it beforehand, whereas Sarah insists that she wasn't scared, knew it was a joke, and told them she wasn't in the mood. She also states that they did tell her they were going to do it in advance. James says they did it to Christina too, though doesn't know whether or not she was told in advance because he wasn't there. Interestingly, despite Derek remaining friends with James, he made it clear that he has a lot of hostility towards Travis and says he can trust him as far as he can throw him. In a surprising turn of events during the trial, Christina decided to accept a plea deal and admitted that no one had told Danielle of the fake kidnapping plot, so she had no idea it was going to happen and therefore could not have given her consent. Whether she was telling the truth or lying just to reduce her sentence is anyone's guess. She also testified that Derek had fallen asleep and didn't have much involvement. Overall, while taking a relatively non-biased approach to the case, the killing game makes it seem plausible that Danielle was not actually involved in the kidnapping. It seems that a couple of the commenters on the Freddy's House forum believed that she was actually in on it, which makes me even more curious to know what extra information the real Blair Witch doc contained. For example, one comment read, I watched it and I'm as confused as the next person. Got to think about why she would take the tape to the police. Does she get anything out of it? She did seem scared in places, but then okay in others. She was clearly in on it. Maybe taking the tape to the police is still part of the story, and then they see if they get away with it. Maybe after it had all happened, she had the time to reflect and thought, actually you bastards, that sucked. I'm stitching you up down the cop shop. Strangely, 3 members of the group have died since the incident occurred. Travis in 2006, Derek in 2007, and Jonathan in 2014. I was unable to find out the causes for Derek and Jonathan as the obituaries are very vague, though mydeathspace.com reported that Travis took his own life in an unspecified manner. I'm not sure if to believe that site or not, as I couldn't find any other sources to back up that claim, and it provides no further information. If it is true, who knows if he did so out of guilt, or because he was being punished for a crime he didn't commit, or for a totally unrelated reason. If I had to take a guess at what happened, I'd probably take the middle ground and say Danielle knew something was going to happen, but maybe didn't realise it would be taken as far as it was. Though with what little evidence we have, often conflicting, it's really hard to say. And I kinda wouldn't be surprised if she didn't have any prior knowledge, considering James outright admitted to pulling the same stunt with Sarah and not telling her in advance. As for the real Blair Witch doc, and the complete footage of the incident itself, finding it certainly seems possible, as it appears to have been on illegal streaming sites for a number of years, so all it would take is one person who may have downloaded it to share it online again, or someone who attends Brunel University to borrow it from the library, so our curiosity can be put to rest. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts and theories in the comments. Do you think Danielle was in on the prank, and if so, why do you think she lied? If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing, and leaving a tip by clicking the thanks under this video. Huge thank you to my patrons, whose names are on screen now. I really appreciate your support. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next Thursday in a new video.